Media queries allow you to group styles together and target them to devices based on some criteria. For example, you could target a device by its width, its height, or orientation, like landscape or portrait. Of course, one of the most obvious differences between viewing a website on a desktop browser and your cell phone is the screen size. Remember that using CSS, you have the power to produce very different web page layouts from the same HTML. Remember cssgarden.com? So it only makes sense then that the most common way to adjust the styling and layout of your page is to provide different styles for different screen sizes of the user's devices. This is why it's crucial to learn at least the basics of how to utilize media queries. Without them, responsive design, which we'll start talking about fairly soon, wouldn't be possible. Let's go ahead and explore the basic syntax of media queries. A media query starts with the keyword @media, and then it is followed by a media feature and followed by curly braces. Within those curly braces, you have your styles. It's basically like a style sheet within a style sheet. Each media feature resolves to either true or false, and you can have more than one media features combined together using logical operators. If the media features resolve to true, the style within the curly braces apply. When writing media queries, make sure you close the curly braces for the media query as a whole, and then separately each styling rule. There are quite a bit of these media features that are available. So you could have max width, you can have min width, you could have height, which is not listed here. You can even target orientation of your device, portrait or landscape. You could target only screens as opposed to targeting only print. Again, if any of these things evaluate to true, the styles contained within the curly braces of the media query will be in effect. As I mentioned before, even though there are quite a bit of these media features that are available, the most common ones are the max width and the min width. And again, the fact that they're most common really is connected to the fact that the most common way of targeting different devices is by the width of the device. In addition, as I said before, the media features can be combined using logical operators. One of the most common logical operators is the AND operator. As an example, here's a code snippet that targets a width range. Here you see we're targeting any device that falls within the range of its width being anywhere from 768 pixels until 991 pixels. If the device has a width that is smaller than that or larger than that, the styles applied within this media query will not apply. Another way to combine media features is to place a comma between them, which would basically translate into being equivalent to an OR operator. In this code snippet, we're showing that we're targeting any device whose width is no larger than 767 pixels, or any device that is at least 992 pixels in width. Now, practically speaking, when you approach responsive design and responsive layouts, the most common logical operator is the AND operator. So if you know that operator, you're in pretty good shape. Now, before we jump into a code example, I'd like to show you a very common approach how you structure media queries within your style sheet. What usually happens is you have a few of these media queries, but you almost always start with some base styles. Base styles will apply across the board, no matter what screen size you actually are viewing the website on. And then you go ahead and start targeting a particular screen size by either changing some of the properties of the base styles or adding something else to them, or maybe taking something away. Now, an important point to point out, and especially when you're using widths of screen sizes of the devices, is that you have to be very careful not to overlap range boundaries. So in this example, you will notice that the first query has the minimum width of 1200 pixels, and the second query is coming up, it's a range again, and it comes up to max width of 1199 pixels. If I were to say 1200 pixels, it will mean they're always inclusive. It will mean that both sets of styles will apply, and most probably things will be pretty messy and very hard to maintain. So it's important when you structure these media queries that you have very clean, separate boundaries. In part 2 of this lecture, we're going to jump into the code editor and see these concepts in action.